So coming up, we're going to get into full-on qualitative data analysis in what is our final lecture. No!
Shut up and sit down.
So, this is week 10. And we're nearly at the end of the unit. In fact, yep, this is our final lecture. I hope I've remembered to put balloons in the background. Balloons in the background. Somewhere. To kind of celebrate. We're kind of getting there, aren't we? Just, yeah, if you're on track, everything's going as it should. Just got one assessment left. And we've got one tutorial left. Okay. Let's go. Let's get started, eh? So, following on from last lecture, I'm screwing it up. Okay. So, following on from last week, now you should now have your codes and themes, and it's now time to develop your analysis fully. This is the final phase where we go deeper into the analytic interpretative work, and it involves writing now in a serious way. Writing goes hand in hand with qualitative analysis. So this slide lists all of the stuff we're going to be getting up to in this lecture. Now let me play some soothing music as you read it. So far, we've familiarized ourselves with the data. I'm hoping you've been working on that body art focus group transcript. You've been working on that, I hope, last week, and you continue to work on that this week so that you have a good play around with analysis and coding. This is the best way to understand analysis, just by getting your hands on it and doing it. Now, last week, we worked on developing themes, and we undertook some initial interpretation. Now we're up to phase number 6, but I've also stuck in another phase here, number 7, which I'll get to later on in this lecture. So phase 6, this is where we define our themes and develop our analysis. So we still haven't settled on our themes, but we're working on them. So what we're doing now is moving from a summative position, which is where we check to see if the codes fit the themes, to an interpretative orientation, where we're focused on seeing what sort of story best helps us thread together our themes. Now, what we're aiming to do here is to write the analytic narrative. It's here where we're fully engaged in making meaning from our data.
I mean.
So a really important part of this process is defining our themes. This means providing a short summary of the core idea and meaning of a theme. And this is a process that helps us clarify and focus on our theme. And this can help us strengthen our themes, because we might say that the themes, we might see that the themes don't actually tell us much. If our summary is very short,
Totally short. Short?
the theme doesn't really tell us much, so it might be a sign that maybe we haven't quite finished. Maybe this theme is a little thin, so maybe we need to go back to our data, but also maybe we just need to drop that theme.
Drop it!
Maybe,
Drop it!
or actually maybe it's a sub-theme to another theme. So doing those summaries gives us the chance to spot if there might be something problematic about any of our themes. In this case, our theme is a bit light, it's a bit thin, not much there.
Look, I'm not going to say this again. There is nothing in there.
Now we might find that our summaries look similar in 2 or more themes, and this might mean that the themes are not sufficiently distinct. They overlap, so you might need more clarity in your analysis. We might also find that our summary of the theme ends up quite long. We have too much to say about it. The summary is it goes on for pages. This might mean that the theme's too big and it needs to be split up into 2 or more smaller themes rather than one big one. It might also have some of the content developed into sub-themes. So if we've got a huge theme, we could split that theme, reorganize it, and find sub-themes in the theme. Now we might also decide the theme is too loose and we should just discard it or discard parts of it. Now Danielle, who showed us how she was coding the body art focus group transcript last week, has provided us with a set of theme definitions. And this is available to those of you who are enrolled in the unit, and you can download that document from our Moodle site along with a video of Danielle explaining her themes. So this is where she's providing those summaries. So defining a theme, providing a summary of a theme, is a critical stage. Now, hopefully you're already starting to do this. Hopefully you've got to that stage where you've got some themes coming out of that transcript you're looking at, and you're starting to be able to define those themes. Now, finding themes is not easy. It's really challenging, but it's important to do. Get your hands on that transcript and have a go at doing the analysis, because otherwise it's just something you're thinking about and you don't really understand it. Once you start doing this thing, then you start to understand what it is. And it's actually quite difficult.
Academics, you never want to get your hands dirty.
Finding these themes are quite difficult. They don't just jump out at you from the transcript. So you need to try it yourself to get a proper understanding of it. Now, once we've defined our themes, we've got those nice summaries, so we know what our themes are, we can then start to develop our analysis through selecting the extracts from our data that illustrate the different facets of each of our themes. And we write a narrative around those extracts so that they tell a story. And we address the so what question. When you say something and someone says, so what? You've got to say why your theme is important. You've got to construct the argument as to why the theme is important and what it tells us that's important to know. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time. Now, there are a couple of reasons why we use extracts from our data and why you often see extracts of data in qualitative research. First, it gives evidence for your claims, and it allows your reader to make their own judgment as to how well your analysis fits your data. Now, when selecting extracts, you want to select those that best illustrate your theme. They need to have a vivid quality and be compelling in terms of illustrating the theme. And you can also draw extracts from across your data to show multiple incidents of your theme. You get that sense of the breadth and depth of the patterns that you found in your data when you do this.
Whoa, that's pretty deep.
Now, there are some rules, guidelines really, for presenting extracts, and you can find this described on page 251 of our prescribed text. The rules include things like editing out irrelevant material. But what you do here is you acknowledge the fact that you've taken some material out of your quote by inserting an ellipse, ... So what you want to do is take out hesitations, repetitions, and other parts that are not relevant. The ums and the ahs. Don't really add that much, really. But you want to indicate that you've taken something out when you take those things out. Sometimes you leave ers in because they show that the person's deep in thought. But if there's a prolonged silence, you don't just have 4 or 5 lines of blank text, you just put in your lips. You want to add punctuation. People don't... You infer the punctuation. People don't say full stop or comma, so you have to put these things in. But you put them in to make the text readable, to capture the rhythm of how someone's talking, but don't use punctuation to change the meaning of what someone said. So be very careful with that. You want to avoid using the same data extract more than once, so don't cite the same quote in 2 different themes. You also want to give the context of the quote, so including the question, when citing a person's answer to a question. So if you're just citing an answer, you've got no context. What was the question that was asked? That annoying, well, it annoys me. I don't know if it annoys you. But on the television, on the news, constantly we're having these press conferences with politicians, and there's no microphone on the journalist, so you can't hear the journalist's question. All you get to hear is the politician's answer. And sometimes it's really difficult to make sense.
I mean, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities, I mean, let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned, But I ain't spending any time on it, because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
well, it's hard to make sense of politicians at the best of times, but sometimes it's really more difficult to make sense of what the politician is saying because you don't know what question they're responding to. Okay. And finally, you want to identify the source of the data. You know, who said it? But use pseudonyms here, not the person's real name, unless you've got permission to use the person's real name, or there's particular circumstances. Sometimes you use the person's real name. For example, when you're interviewing a politician, they're a public figure, so you can use their real name. You also want to give some key demographic information on the person that's relevant. So after the quote, you know, you just use the pseudonym, the made-up name, and then cite their gender, their age, and so on, but only if those demographic details are irrelevant. You know, only if gender is becoming an important factor in your research, or you think it's a relevant thing to cite. So, you know, you have the quote, pseudonym's name, and then gender, age, so on, in brackets, you know, the little citation to your quote. Now, the data should be presented as quotes. I keep saying that, so I've confused you, sorry. So extracts and quotes, same sort of thing. So you present your extract as a quote, and you do that using quote marks to make it clear that your participant's speaking, it's your participant's words, not yours. If it's a short quote, short extract, you know, say a sentence, it just goes in your paragraph, in your text as normal. But if it's a long extract, a long quote, it should be in a separate indented paragraph. Now, as you read more and more qualitative research, you'll start to see these rules being followed by researchers. So you'll soon pick it up. You know, have a look at back at week 2, for example, at the qualitative research paper we had to read of. You'll see how extracts of data are used there as quotes. Now, we've come back to that question of what type of analysis are we doing. Yes, we're doing thematic analysis, but I'm talking here about the difference between descriptive and interpretive analysis. So, as was spoken about before, undertaking a descriptive analysis is really just reporting on what people have said. It's not usually what's considered an in-depth analysis. So we need to interpret our data, and here we move beyond description and consider how and why particular positions are adopted or accounts are given by our participants. And this is where we draw upon latent meanings, which we referred to in a previous lecture, and this is where we're engaged in looking at fine detail and engaging in in-depth analysis.
I want an analysis.
Now, the paper we looked at on casual sex was a good example of an in-depth analysis. So we're looking beyond the explicit meanings. We're asking why this account has been made by our participant. How does this account relate to broader cultural, historical, social, and economic contexts? You know, the things that are happening in society. So how does what this person's saying relate to broader issues that are going on in that person's life, but more broadly in all of our lives? Interpretive analysis is quite difficult to do because of that, you know, because it's dealing with abstract concepts. So you're taking what someone has said, and then you're broadening, and you're making connections to abstract things.
Joy.
What?
Well, I read about this place in the manual. We shouldn't go in there.
Bing Bong says it's the quickest way to headquarters.
No, but Joy, this is abstract thought.
So what you need to do here as well is pull on from the literature on the topic. So you're relating it to social and cultural and historical contexts, but you're also relating it to the literature on the topic, particularly the academic literature. And that's one reason why we haven't gone into a full-on interpretative analysis of the focus group on body art. Well, I haven't, and Danielle hasn't, because neither Danielle or I are familiar with that literature on body art. You know, we stopped at the point of our own familiarity of the broad social issues. You know, we could relate to what's happening more broadly in society around body art. We kind of understand some of the cultural factors, a little bit of the historical factors, some of the social factors, but a little bit of politics in there as well, identity politics, but not much beyond that. Certainly not, we didn't relate anything to what's been said in the academic literature because we haven't read that academic literature, because body art is not the specialist area of myself or Danielle. You know, so if if we were doing this research as researchers into an area that we had expertise on, then we would go into that theoretical and empirical literature and cite it and bring it into our analysis and say how what our participants talked about related to what's been said in the literature. Now, what are some of the questions we can ask to help guide our interpretive analysis? Well, we're looking here at questions about implications. What are the implications for a participant talking about a thing in a particular way? What are the implications for how others think about this thing, and what are the implications for society? So thinking about refugees, what are the implications for a participant talking about refugees in a particular way? What are the implications for refugees, for people talking about them in particular ways? And what are the implications for society of lots of people talking about refugees, framing refugees in a particular way? And, what are the implications for academic knowledge? What have we learned from the way people talk about refugees? Now, this is important because in life, we're all constantly renegotiating the meanings of things, like the meaning of body art or the meaning of being a refugee. So looking at the implications of holding particular positions on such things is important, as is ensuring that those implications are fully documented and subject to analysis and interrogation by the academic community, so those meanings and those shifts in meanings can be reflected back to the public, to society, for discussion, so people can see how things are shifting in terms of how we're making sense of the world. But it's also because we need to keep track of how and why meanings shift. What is it that's causing us to think differently about refugees now to when we're thinking about them, say, 10 or 20 years ago, if we're thinking about them at all? So that bit of drawing out the implications for the academic community is where we integrate the literature into our analysis. We look to see how our analysis links to that existing literature and what it might have contributed to that literature.
Everything people have written about in science books is going to change.
And our hope is always that we've developed or challenged existing understandings on the topic. Now, there are a few things that analysis is not. And we kind of touched on this in the previous lecture. It's not about paraphrasing what participants have told us. It's not about presenting data to speak for itself. And it's not arguing with the data, i.e. arguing how your participants are wrong. Now that one, arguing that our participants are wrong, it's a real risk that you have if you've been trained in quantitative methods, because you're so focused on what is true and what is false. You're truth seekers. You're out there trying to find what the truth is.
I want answers! I want the truth!
You're almost programmed to try and establish which bits of a participant's account were true and which bits were false. In qualitative methods, we are meaning seekers. We're not concerned with whether something someone says is true. We want to know why they said it. We're not there to debunk myths. We're there to find out why people believe in those myths. So your role is interpretative, to look at the implications of people thinking in particular ways, not to test out the truth of their claims. Now, the final part of our process is naming themes. And this is the fun bit, believe it or not. This is where you can engage your creativity and find something fun and snappy to call your themes. Theme names are often used as subheadings in your report or your thesis or your research paper. And the best theme names can actually become the title of your research paper. So you want something that grabs people's attention.
I need a headline.
We didn't get to the point of finalizing our names for the themes with Danielle's analysis. So the names of the themes there were a little dry. Actually, the phrases more than anything else. A little dry. So you've missed out on the fun bit. So carry on, have a look at those themes, have a look at your own themes, and try and find a snappy way of describing it. So if you continue analysis to get to this stage, you can do the fun bit. Find cool names for your themes. Have fun. Use puns. Use alliteration. Anyway, we'll see what you come up with in week 11. But be playful. You know, you want to grab people's attention with themes so they avoid dry, boring ones. Well, I'm kind of saying clickbait, aren't I, in some ways? Well, it's sort of clickbait, you know? It's a theme that just grabs your attention. You go, whoa, what's that about? That's interesting. I need to read more. It's a way of engaging a reader. Now, to end, let's just go through a few quality indicators that you can use to help you figure out if your analysis is good enough. Well, here is part of the list, and you can read more about it in our prescribed text. We actually covered a lot of this in our lectures, so the prescribed text should be a good refresher for you as you have a look at all these ways we can identify poor quality analysis. So have a look at this slide at your leisure, and go stick your nose back in your textbook and go back to reading your textbook. Also, on the companion website to the textbook, you can find this really useful checklist, and this helps you decide if your thematic analysis is of good quality. It's also available on the University of Wellington's thematic analysis site, which a link to on our Moodle page if you're enrolled in this unit. If you're not enrolled in this unit, you know, do the Google search. It's a really good checklist you can use to check to see if your thematic analysis is shaping up well and is likely to be viewed by others as of good quality. So as this video ends, so does our lecture series end on this unit. So it's kind of time to continue on without me. And, you know, replace me now with your reading, with the textbook and with other readings that you're coming across. And with your peers, your classmates. You know, replace me with your classmates. You know, try out some analysis for yourself and then share it with your classmates. Yeah, I'm not completely disappearing. I'm going to be in week 11. So I'll be there hoping to hear you chatting with your classmates. Oh, I just realised how cheesy I'm sounding. A little bit too sentimental. Tear in the eye. The money shot. I am quite sad actually about the unit ending. I won't be sad about less work to do because it's quite work intensive. I don't know if you've noticed. You've probably been working quite hard. But yeah, kind of going to miss you. Anyway, enough of this. Week 11. Get to see you in week 11. Yeah, I'm going to miss hanging out with you in these lectures. Yeah, that's it, really. So see you in the tutorial. We'll have a look at what you've made of the transcript on body art. Have I repeated that enough for you to know that you should be reading and doing an analysis on that transcript? If you don't get time, just come along to the tutorial anyway. Hear what other people have got up to. And now, if you have been reading the transcript and been doing full-on analysis and you come into the tute and you're fully tatted up, all your tattoos everywhere, and you didn't have tattoos the last time anyone saw you, I'll know that you kind of really got yourself immersed into the analysis and the subject, into the topic. Okay. Anyway, let's stop now. So not till the next lecture on this unit, but till our week 11 tutorial. Ta-da. Oh, by the way, I can still chat to you through my other videos, not on the unit, but subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you get to hear me whittering on about other things.